Hi, I'm Maureen Frank, and you know that I'm very passionate about inclusive leadership. I speak to executives and leaders all the time, and one of the most common things I hear is, but Maureen, I always pick the best person for the job. I'm not going to pick this person just because they fit into a particular group. The thing I like to challenge leaders on is the realisation that actually meritocracy is quite subjective. So the person that I think is best for the job might be quite different to who you think. So today I want to share with you my top 10 tips for picking the best person for the job. So my first tip is understand how you define a superstar performer. Is it really based on history? Is it actually outdated? Is this person really a superstar, or actually are you reflecting your own performance, your own abilities on the individual? Does your team actually need something completely different in order to shoot the lights out of it? And number two, check yourself and your natural tendency to confirm your beliefs. So in my experience, we don't do this stuff because we're bad people. We just have a tendency, and it's habit. It's also because we're frantically busy. We do things the way we know. We do things the way we've always done them. So check yourself sometimes and recognize that maybe you need to change it up a little bit in order to get to difference, which is what leads to greater innovation, engagement, and collaboration in your team. And number three, recognize how we underutilize the entire talent pool by ordaining individuals as talent or not. One of my pet hates. I hate labeling people. And I have to say, in having worked with over 20,000 women in our mentoring programs, we've seen people come from being non-talent to suddenly miraculously being in the talent pool. Right? Why has that happened? Have we given them some magical pill? No. They had the capability right at the beginning, but sometimes they needed someone to give them a different type of guidance to get the very best out of them. So be careful the way you label people, because it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy for them to move into more senior roles, and that means nothing at all. Number four, delve deep. What has been your role in not leveraging all the human capital? This is about getting honest with yourself. Because see, the thing is, I also hear from senior leaders, I get that someone else is doing that, but I am colorblind. I always hire the best person for the job. You've got to get honest with yourself. You've got to start challenging yourself, because that ritual of going back to habit, the way you've always done things, the person who you think is going to be less risky, safe because it's a known quantity in a role, is that really the best person for the job? And number five, challenge merit based on historical measures and the way you would do the job. So this is what I was saying, that merit is in fact very subjective, and it's natural. So I'm not calling you a bad person, please don't get me wrong, and I don't see any malintent in any of these decisions. But what happens is we've got a role to fill, we've got urgency, we've got deadlines, we've got things that our bosses want, and we want to go with someone that we know is going to do the job. And usually someone who's going to do the job my way. So you've got to keep questioning yourself, is that really the best thing for your team? And should it in fact be a criteria for the role that you're looking for a little bit of difference in the team? And number six, get real about your own denial. Merit is subjective. So that's similar to what I've said before. To me, that's actually reflecting on maybe you're not right, and maybe your way is not the best way. And that's about getting rid of command and control leadership. We all have a natural tendency as leaders to be quite dictatorial in the way that we want something done. But what we do in managing that way is we stifle innovation. So in giving someone a task and not telling them exactly how we want it done, that's hard to do sometimes, particularly when we're time pressured, but you know what? You never know what kind of result you might get. I've tested it myself and results are amazing, so I encourage you to experiment. Number seven, crash your thinking about the labels you have placed on individuals. It starts with challenging yourself. And this is, my theory is that when you meet someone, when you start working with someone, because our brain is so overloaded with information, we have to file them. And I like to use the dresser drawers as the analogy. You know, you put the socks in one drawer, you put your undies in another drawer, and you put people in certain drawers. But you know, the thing is, if you've put someone in a particular drawer, how hard is it for that person to get out of that drawer in your mind? So give people another shot, and remember that the impressions that you might have had from them a long time ago might have changed significantly. And that if you perhaps take a different approach to nurturing their real potential, you also might get a different result and pop them in a different drawer in your own mind. So number 8, dissect the role and what has to be done every day. Do historic ideas of past experience really hold true? You know, I work in a lot of industries where I see that, you know, in order to get to this role, it's quite rigid. You have to have done this, this, and this. And you know what? That has been the case for many, many years, decades in fact. So in challenging people to think, is that really true? Do you actually really need to have this experience in order to do this role? Let's actually dissect what this role does today. What I've often found is that that role is perhaps more about people management. And some of the technical requirements that they think they need for the role are not necessarily true. And number 9, is the best person for the job someone a bit like me? And this is our tendency to hire mini-me's. And again, I'm not casting aspersions, but it's a natural tendency. You know, we interview someone, we have a gut feel that they will be a cultural fit. Why? Because we feel that there's a commonality, and in fact, there usually is a commonality. You see something of yourself in that person. You know what? Then you interview someone else and you think, we just didn't have that connection. It may just be that you don't have that commonality, and that doesn't necessarily mean that person's not the best person for the job. That person could be unbelievably creative. And number 10 is really simple. It's pause and skip a beat when making decisions. The research clearly shows that just by skipping a beat, stopping and thinking about it for a moment, so starting to see the person as an individual rather than kind of branding and labeling them or putting them in a group in your own mind, can have a significant impact on the final decision that you make. So take your time. I know you're busy, but take the time to just really think it through. Ask that person some questions about who they really are, what makes them tick. And you might end up making a very different decision about who the best person for the job really is.